Hello, today we are going to look at the rowing frame, or which is also known as speed frame or fly frame, and we are going to get introduced to the rowing bobbin that is formed on the on this particular machine, which is known as a rowing frame. So just to revise the spinning flowchart for a carded yarn, we have to go through these processes, that is blow room, carding, breaker draw frame, finisher draw frame, rowing frame, and then ring frame. So at this stage, we are going to study the rowing frame, where the input is the drawn sliver that comes from a finisher draw frame, and the output is a rowing. This particular rowing that is formed is going to be fed to the ring frame, and we are going to get a carded yarn. So let us look at the rowing frame objectives. The objective is to thin out the drawn sliver to give us a rowing, and this particular rowing, since it is weak, it needs to be twisted to impart strength. And the last thing that needs to be done is it needs to be wound onto a suitable package for transportation. Now when I say transportation, it means that we need to take this particular rowing and feed it to the ring frame. So a suitable package has to be made, which cannot be a can, and therefore a bobbin is used here. So let us see this rowing frame. It is called as a necessary evil. Let us see why it is called so. A rowing frame is necessary because if you see the draw frame sliver, which is around 0.12 hank, which you need to convert to a yarn of say 60s count, then approximately one would require a draft of around 300 to 500 in between. And this kind of a draft, it's quite high, and one cannot have this kind of draft on one single machine. So only the ring frame would not be able to provide this high level of draft. So since it's not capable of high drafts, we will need one more machine, and that would be a rowing frame in between the draw frame and the ring frame. Also, the second reason is that draw frame cans is not an ideal form of material transportation, and neither is it an ideal form of feed to the ring frame. So in spite of all efforts that have been made to eliminate this process, due to the above two reasons, it remains without any success. So let us see what are the demands placed on a modern rowing frame. If the rowing frame has to be used, then the efforts must be directed towards the following. So what we're trying to see is, since the rowing frame is a necessary evil, that means I just cannot avoid it. So at least if I cannot avoid it, let us see what it should be doing, so that it will be a little bit beneficial in the process. So it should be of a simpler design if possible, and it should also be less liable to faults. It must have increased spindle speeds, so that I get a good efficiency and good production levels. Then one must try to get larger packages, and also if possible some amount of automation in both machine as well as during transportation would be good, um, in terms of making use of this rowing frame, since anyways one has to use it. All this must be achieved without any increase in production costs. So this would be an ideal condition where we have all these four conditions met, and that too with no increase in real production costs. So let us see the objects of a rowing frame. The main object of the rowing frame is to attenuate the sliver. The resulting rowing is weak due to low coherence, and hence twist has to be inserted, and this twisted rowing has to be transported in a form of a suitable package to the ring frame, and therefore is wound onto a rowing bobbin. So three basic objects, making a rowing, a twisting, and then winding it. So drafting, twisting, and winding. So let us just go a little bit ahead and see. This is the image of a rowing bobbin, and this, if I were to take a cross section of this is how the bobbin would look. The layers of rowing are laid in the form of in this manner, um, various one layer on top of the other, and this is how the bobbin is made. The winding operation was the operation which made the old rowing frame gearing really very complicated. In the modern rowing frames, motors have replaced whatever complicated gearing was there in the old roving frames, like differential gears and building mechanisms. All these are being replaced in the modern roving frames. So to understand any of this, we should understand why this winding operation basically is so very complicated, so that it makes the gearing complicated. Let us try and understand. So what really makes winding on roving frame so complicated? Roving has to be attenuated at the ring frame to make the final yarn. So this is for sure that to make a yarn, I have to make a roving. The twist inserted at the roving frame must not be so high so as to pose a problem during drafting in the ring frame drafting system. So one must take care that the twist inserted at this place, although it is necessary to impart some amount of strength in the roving, because it has become more thin and become weak. But in spite of that, one must take care that the twist inserted must not be so high so that it creates a problem in ring frame, because again in ring frame there is a drafting system which will have to open out this particular or rather draft this particular roving to form the yarn, and therefore too much of twist will not is not advisable. The twist must only be sufficient, therefore, on a roving frame to allow for roving to be easily unwound on the ring frame without breakages. So, if at all we make a roving and make a bobbin out of it, this bobbin, when it goes on the ring frame, it should be possible that without breaking, the roving is being unwound from this particular bobbin. So, therefore, we can conclude that optimum twist has to be inserted. That means the twist inserted should not be too low so that the roving is still weak, or too high so that it creates a problem in ring frame. So it should be an optimum amount of twist that has to be inserted at the roving frame. Now, since the roving is low in twist and as well as strength, the tension on the roving must be as low as possible. So if possible, if I'm able to reduce the tensions that the roving might face in its next process, then I would be able to insert lower twist in on roving frame, which would be an ideal condition for me. The tensions during unwinding must therefore be as low as possible. So how do we ensure that the unwinding tensions are low? So for that we need to understand a little bit of winding and unwinding systems. So there are two types of unwinding systems that are possible: side withdrawal and over end withdrawal. So let us have a look at them. What do I mean by withdrawal when I say side withdrawal? So in a side withdrawal, the material would be unwound by rotation of the entire package and therefore would exert a lot of tension on the material. So this is how it looks like. It is a bobbin with flanges on both the sides, and whatever material is being wound, if I need to unwind it, this entire package needs to rotate, which is shown here in a diagram. So what is a other kind of withdrawal system? That is the over end withdrawal. In over the end withdrawal, the material is unwound over the package end, and the package need not rotate during unwinding. So therefore, since the package need not rotate, it exerts minimal tension onto the material getting unwound. So the tension exerted on the material during unwinding is much lesser when compared to the side withdrawal system. So this is how the over end withdrawal looks like. So there are no flanges, but the material just comes over the end instead of in the earlier case. And as you can see, the package need not rotate during unwinding, and this kind of a withdrawal would be ideal for a roving which is rather weak. So over the end unwinding and the shape of the roving bobbin, let us try to understand this. The over the end type of unwinding would be more suitable for roving since it is weak, as we have already seen, due to the low insertion of twist. So, but the over end unwinding does not pose a problem when the material is a yarn. So this kind of an unwinding is or this kind of a package where over the end unwinding is happening. Such packages are more popular in case of a yarn, because in case of a yarn, when yarn is wound on such a package, then due to the hairiness of the yarn, the coils hold on to each other and there are less chances of slough off. Now what is a slough off? It's a package defect where the coils of yarn come off the package in bunches. So if I were to use this kind of over the end unwinding for roving, it would not be ideal because all most of the coils would just come off as a slough off from the side of the or the ends of the bobbin. So to avoid slough off, the package must be tapered at both the ends of the bobbin. So in case of a roving, we need to make a special shape here. Although I want an over the end unwinding, but at the same time I do not want slough offs. So what we do is we have this kind of a package built up where we have a tapered ends on both the sides. So this will ensure that slough offs do not happen. So let us look at the construction of a roving bobbin a little bit in detail. So this is, we have already mentioned how this is the image of the roving bobbin. So the roving bobbin is a cylindrical body with tapered ends, as we have seen. This is the taper on the ends. It is created by building layer upon layer of parallel coils of roving on a wooden or a plastic tube. So the center is a plastic or a wooden tube on which the coils of roving are laid one on top of the other, and the plastic tube would be the core of the bobbin. So let us see how these layers are built. Lift of bobbin. So if this is the empty bobbin and the lift would be leaving some area at the top and at the bottom, if the first layer were to be wound from say bottom to the top, then let us see, this red arrow will show how it goes. So if the this is known as the lift, which is the first layer, and first layer being laid, how it would be laid, this particular arrow, it will that means the coils are being laid from the bottom here and you reach the top. And once you reach the top, after laying the last coil at the end of the lift, so this is the lift, this is the end of the lift, there is a reversal in the traverse. So this green arrow will show you that there is a reversal. So the coils are laid again as you come towards the bottom of the bobbin. So this is how it keeps on happening. So this is the first layer that is being laid. The lift is say maybe this much, and then as you go ahead, go to the second layer, the lift has to be reduced, and so on till your entire bobbin is built, so that we get a tapered end on both the sides. So the subsequent layers showing reduced lifts give us a tapered ends. So what is the difference in speed between winding element and the bobbin? So let us see, why do we need this kind of a difference between the winding element and the bobbin. The winding element in case of a roving frame would be a flyer. So let us just look at a small animation here. So this is, we can treat this as a bobbin, and there is a winding element which is winding this particular material or this tape onto this particular empty bobbin. So we can see that in this case, what is happening is this winding element is rotating around the bobbin to wind this whatever material we need to wind. And if you observe closely, the bobbin is stationary, it is not rotating. Rather, the winding element is having a rotatory motion. Now, instead of this situation, what if the bobbin also were to rotate in the same direction? In that case, we would end up with no winding. Or if at all we have to give some kind of rotatory motion to the bobbin, in that case we must ensure that there is a difference in speeds between the winding element and the bobbin, so that there is some amount of winding that is happening. So we'll continue with this particular animation just to understand this concept. So with this, there are two elements involved in winding. The one that is winding, that is this particular element that would be rotating, and the other on which the material is being wound, and that is the bobbin. So if these are the two elements, either one of the above elements must be stationary. So in this case, the bobbin was stationary. Either it can be stationary, or one of them should be faster than the other for winding, for any kind of winding to take place. So it is obvious that if the speeds of both these elements are equal, then there shall be no winding. So with this concept or background in mind, we must understand the speed of the flyer and the bobbin. So since flyer is the winding element and the bobbin is the element on which the material is being wound, we are sure now that there should be some kind of speed difference between the flyer and the bobbin. So now the only question remains is that whether the bobbin will be faster than the flyer or the flyer will be faster than the bobbin. In either case, winding will happen, but we must make a choice between these two kinds of systems. The winding of the roving on the bobbin is done by an element known as a flyer. Therefore, as discussed, there has to be a speed difference between the flyer and the bobbin. The following two cases are possible. Flyer speed is higher than the bobbin speed, which is known as a flyer leading, since flyer speed is higher. Or there could be a second case where bobbin speed is higher than the flyer speed, which is known as a bobbin leading. So by just analyzing these two cases, we should decide and conclude as to which system would be more ideal for us to work with. So let us first see the flyer leading type, where the flyer speed is higher than that of the bobbin. So let us assume some numbers here. Let the front roller delivery rate be pi dn. This is the surface speed of the front roller. And let us say it's a constant number, because whatever delivery is happening by the front roller, that's always constant. That constant material, say maybe in inches per minute, would need to be has to be wound onto the bobbin. And for this we know that bobbin speed, let us say it is nb, and flyer speed at the instant of my winding is say nf. And let bobbin diameter at the instant of my winding be small db. So with these representations, let us go ahead. Therefore the bobbin circumference at this instance would be pi into db, if db is a bobbin diameter. So therefore, if we were to equate or form an equation, we know that whatever material is being delivered by the front roller has to be wound onto the bobbin. So if the material delivered is say F, then it has to be equal to pi into dB into n, that is pi dn for the bobbin. And here the n would be the difference between the flyer speed and the bobbin speed. So since flyer speed is higher in case of flyer leading, we write it as nf minus nb. So this would be your equation. So in the above equation, the front roller speed, the pi, and the flyer speed, all these three elements would be constant. Flyer speed is always constant. Therefore, since the LHS is constant, that is F is constant, on the right hand side, as the diameter of the bobbin increases, only this will be variable. This will keep on increasing. So if this increases, to make this keep this constant, we need to reduce this particular bracket. So NF minus NB must reduce. So since the flyer speed in this case in this bracket is a constant number, in that case for this bracket to reduce, we can obviously see that NB must increase. So this is the conclusion of this particular flyer leading case, where in case of flyer leading, as the bobbin diameter increases, the speed of the bobbin must increase. So now let us look at the second case, that is the bobbin leading, where again we have taken the same values here, and therefore bobbin circumference is pi into dB as before, and the only difference would be the equation would be F is equal to pi into dB into NB minus NF here, because the bobbin is leading here, the bobbin speed will be higher than the flyer speed. So in the above equation, the front roller speed as before, pi, as well as the flyer speeds, all are constant. Since all these are constant and LHS is constant, as the dB increases or the bobbin diameter goes on increasing, this bracket must again decrease. But with a slight difference here now, since the flyer speed in this bracket is going to be a constant, for this bracket to decrease, NB also must decrease. So in conclusion, in case of bobbin leading, um, we find that as the bobbin diameter goes on increasing, the speed of the bobbin must decrease. So these are two cases that we now have. Now in the next slide, let us try and compare both of them. So flyer leading versus bobbin leading. In the flyer leading case, the flyer speed is going to be constant, and as the bobbin diameter increases, the bobbin speed will need to increase, as we have just seen in the earlier slide. In the case of bobbin leading, again the flyer speed is always going to remain constant, but bobbin speed is higher than the flyer speed, and therefore as the bobbin diameter increases, bobbin speed is decreasing. So this we have proved from the earlier slide and the equations that we have seen. So these are the two cases that we have. Now we must try to conclude for ourselves which case is more ideal for us. Bobbin leading system definitely would be more advantageous as compared to the flyer leading systems, because in the case of bobbin leading, the bobbin speed reduces as the diameter of the bobbin increases. So it is obvious that as the bobbin gets heavier, since as the bobbin diameter increases, it will become heavier in weight, and it would always be advantageous for us to decrease its speed rather than increase, because if we decrease the speed, it will require lesser efforts on the part of the machine, and it will lead to some sort of saving in energy consumption. So as the bobbin diameter increases, we need to reducing the bobbin speed would be a more ideal condition for any machine to run. So we go with bobbin leading. So we shall see that all the modern rowing frames that are based on the bobbin leading principle. So flyer leading is not at all used. So in case of bobbin leading, we know that bobbin speed is going to be always higher than the flyer speed. Flyer speed is going to be constant, and bobbin speed is going to be higher. And as the bobbin diameter goes on increasing, we need to reduce the bobbin speed. That means layer by layer, as the bobbin is being built, we need to reduce the bobbin speed. So this is one thing that we need to keep in mind as we go further on. So requirements for building the roving bobbin. So to build this particular bobbin, what are the requirements? The bobbin speed has to reduce for winding as the bobbin is being built up layer by layer, that we've just concluded. Then the second thing is that we saw that as the first layer, after the first layer is wound, um, the traverse has to come back. I mean, if the flyer has reached this particular end from bottom to the top, it has to return back to the bottom, and then again it will be moving upwards and downwards. So rather, I can say in the rowing frame, the flyer is not moving up and down. Rather, the bobbin rail would be moving up and down, and the coils are being laid from bottom to the top, and subsequently from top to the bottom, and so on until the entire bobbin is built up. So the flyer that lays the roving on the bobbin, or rather the bobbin, is reversed every time it reaches the end of its lift. To form the tapered ends, now once we have decided that the bobbin speed has to reduce, and the bobbin has to reach the end of the traverse and reverse every time, we need to also keep in mind that to make these tapered ends, the height of the lift must also be reduced after every layer that gets completed. So there are three requirements in case of winding this particular roving bobbin, which needs to be fulfilled if we need this shape of the bobbin. So this that therefore, as we shall see later, these 3 points make the building of this particular roving bobbin quite complicated, and the resulting whatever gearing is there would also be slightly complicated. And now this was there on the old roving frame, but on modern roving frames, they have been replaced by motors, and the gearing has become much simpler than what it used to be. So in our coming lectures, we shall see both conventional roving frames as well as modern roving frames from the point of view of this basic requirement, and how the gearing has changed over a period of time to make the entire mechanical system much less or less complicated, and make it much easier to build up this particular roving bobbin. So with this, we come to the end of this particular lecture. Thank you.